What's up everybody, Shane here from Fugatech 3D Printing. Today we're checking out some resin from Nova3D. Welcome back. So yes, today we're checking out ABS-like dark gray from Nova3D. Now it's been a while since you guys have seen me do anything with resin because I haven't had to do much with it lately. I did some projects earlier, I think last year, but I just really had gotten out of it because I didn't really have a need for such, detailed prints, which is what you get from resin prints. Like you get crazy detailed prints. Now I'm using older resin printers because, again, I don't resin print a lot, so companies don't send me a lot of printers. So for this review of this resin specifically, I am using my old faithful Anycubic Photon resin printer. Most of these prints honestly don't take very long because the great thing about resin printing, so real quick on resin printing, it doesn't matter how much is on the bed, it takes the exact same amount of time per millimeter to print. It doesn't matter how much is on there. Well, it can vary from resin to resin, but I mean, if you have your layers set to 6 seconds or 8 seconds or 10 seconds per layer, it's curing the entire build plate at once. So with resin printing, it is absolutely critical that you maximize how much you put on your build plate because it's going to do it all at once. And if you have a well-leveled build plate, then you will be absolutely off to the races and able to print tons and tons of things. So, few things to talk about before I actually start looking at some of the prints. Number one, this was sent to me by Nova3D for the purpose of this review. They didn't pay me for it. They just sent me the resin and said, hey, would you like to check it out? I said yes, because I wanted to print some D&D minis, and this was a great excuse to do so for my brother and for my daughter. Number two, I will not be stress testing this because I am not Stefan from CNC Kitchen. He has all these apparatuses and things like that he can properly test. The only thing I can do is drop this and see what happens, but I don't really see that as a good test because I don't plan on dropping any of these. And you're also not really printing resin for structural prints. In my opinion, I would much rather use FDM, ABS, PETG, or PLA, depending on what I am printing for. I would never print something that needs to be structural out of resin. The only person I've seen really do that is John from Practical 3D Printing, where he's actually printed some extruders. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to go that route because, again, that's not something that I do. I'm going to talk about the printability of this and just how well the details look using an MSLA printer. All of these prints were printed, again, on my Anycubic Photon, all of the same build plate. I did have to switch out FEPs because I was getting a few failures, and I noticed that my FEP had some old resin kind of on there and was causing failures, and then as I was cleaning one off, I punctured it. So in a recent live stream, I went ahead and replaced the FEP on there. Have had 0 failures since then, so that was clearly an issue with just an old FEP that I've been using for about 5 years, so clearly it needed to be changed out. And for the print settings, I'll put a little thing right here so you guys can see how long these were printed at. For the most part, I was doing 8 bottom layers at 60 seconds per layer. Again, this is an older MSLA printer, so it does take longer. It's not any of the new ones with a more powerful UV array under it. This one is older, so it does take a little bit longer. And I was doing 8 seconds per layer. In some of my testing, I'll show you here, I could have done a little bit longer, but the lower time on each layer worked out quite well for all of my prints. So your mileage may vary, but that's just what I was doing here. But again, I'll show you guys the settings here just so you know how it was going. So now we can talk about some of the prints. So the first thing we're going to talk about are some of the test prints that I did. And honestly, I normally am able to find good settings online. I'm not a pioneer of resin printing. It's been doing this, people have been doing this for a very long time now. So most likely there are very good or similar settings out there that you can use on this resin. So I was able to find something and I went ahead. Okay, so this was my first print. This is just a generic one from, I don't know who it was on, Cults. But you can kind of see the different details that it does. This is a very, very quick print. This takes 14 minutes to do. But you can just see it kind of, you're supposed to check like how close that is there, how filled in these are. I was a little bit too close, so I have a little bit of elephant footing on this one. And then all of these down here are supposed to be kind of like perfect lines. We see some are a little messed up. So this one was clearly a little bit too under exposed is the word to use. So I went ahead, upped my settings a little bit, and I decided to switch to the Fugatech model. So here is their test model. So this is the Fugatech model, and there's this little cube that goes right here. But yeah, I was, again, a little bit too low on my exposure, so that fell off shortly after coming out. But you can see all the different details that it fills in. And I mean, did it work? Yes. Should I have done it longer? Probably. So I went ahead and bumped my settings up to 12 seconds per layer, and that went better. So this mostly stayed on. A few of them did come off. Maybe a little bit longer might have been better. But overall, I think that was a good setting. So 10 to 12 seconds is pretty good for this resin, especially for keeping the little itty bitties there to kind of hold on. As you can see, they're just real small there. As you'll notice, most all of these have the support still on them. So I have a few that I've taken them off of, and I'll show you kind of what those look like. But just so you can kind of see what support looks like. Some of these models were pre-supported. When I was able to download them, some of them I had to do all the supports on, so it's just kind of a mixed bag. Or I let the Chitu box do the supports for me, so I've done that as well. Let's take a look at one that does not have supports yet. So this is just a little dwarf with a battle axe and a shield, and I have to say it is pretty doggone detailed with all these little things. They pretty much all print upside down like this with a bunch of support as they come out. So his horns are kind of the last thing to be printed there. But I mean, it is just very, very detailed. No issues with getting the support off. It kind of just like popped off. And yeah, I mean, again, very easy to print with. This was with my original settings of the 8 seconds for the normal layers. So here's another little like elf with a bow. So again, these are really hard to film. This is with a macro lens on another camera. But yeah, it looks just great. You know, I mean, the filament is pretty stiff. It's got a little bit of flex to it. And that's with this being fully cured. Yeah, again, super detailed, very consistent color as well. Nothing really wrong with that, which is, I mean, it's really good to see such consistency in the color. So yeah. And then here's a guy with just an absolute ton of support. So this is some giant spider for D&D. And you can see I've done a mixture of auto supports that were large, so you can see, or medium. So these are medium, large supports here along the back. And then I just went ahead in and did my own light supports just on the different linkages of its legs, just to make sure that I would have enough support on there and it wouldn't really come off. And this is all fully cured, and I mean, the support just peels right off of the different parts very easily. And again, light supports are really good for having a low risk of tear out on your models and things like that. I'm also not a professional painter with any of these, so we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. Different models in here. So these are rodents of unusual size from Princess Bride. There's a half dozen of them in there and supported. There's this like night guy, and then there is a very small worm thing in here. But again, so these ones were all pre-supported. They all came out just fine. Him I had to do support on, and so is this little guy. But again, they all just use light supports because these were smaller models and they had no issues being printed. I've done something as simple as the one ring. So just set it on its side like that with just a few light supports going around, and it held on. Let's see if we can pull it off here. It's pretty strong when it comes to supports, but they come off, and you can see a little bit of the scarring from them, but a quick little sand on that bottom, and then some paint, and then I will have the one ring. I'll show you one last model here. So this is going to be my daughter's character for her D&D adventures, but it's a sorcerer, mage, girl. This one's using all light supports. These were automatically generated by Chi2box. I did not have to add any extra ones, but you can see the full gamut of them on the bottom as this builds up. And yeah, I mean, again, these are all very light, so these will break off super easily, just like that. You can see these just peel right off with no issues at all. And again, with light supports, they don't leave much scarring. So when you look at the back, you'll be able to tell. I'll point on it with the computer if I can see any of the scarring, but I can't really from this angle because I'm looking at the camera screen. But yeah, it works pretty well. And if I just do the bottom just pops off like that. The bottom has a bit of scarring, and you can see a little bit of the layer lines just because it was printed at an angle. But I just put this onto some sandpaper. I will back and forth make the bottom flat, and then we're off to painting. Not too bad. So as you can tell, printability, it's there. Even using such an old printer, the Photon came out in, oh gosh, what was that, 2019 maybe? So it's about 4 to 5 years old. I've been running the same FEP on that for that long, and again, it wasn't until I punctured it, then it finally gave up the ghost on me. So yeah, it prints well, it's easy to cure. So yeah, so for what I'm using for curing and for washing, I am using the Anycubic wash station that I had gotten a long time ago as well. I have a ultrasonic cleaner as well that I could use. It's actually in the bin here under the table because that's where I've been storing my resin stuff. You can use that, and I've made my own light box before, so if you want to see any of those videos, you can search my channel, or I'll put links here maybe. I'll put a link up in the corner so you guys can see what that looks like. But yeah, I'm using that to wash them all and then to cure them all. I run the wash twice and I run the cure twice, the longest cure, which I believe is 8 minutes? 6 minutes. It's 6 minutes on there is the longest. So I cure them for about 12 minutes. That gets them nice, strong, sturdy. I mean, they feel pretty sturdy, but again, the only scientific way I have to test the strength of this resin is to drop them, and I'm not going to do that because I think that would be a waste of the models that I printed here. So yeah, if you're curious on picking some of this up, I'll put some links down below where you can get it. This is a newer one from them, so this is, I was having a hard time kind of finding some of it, but it is a newer resin, and again, between the consistency of how it is, the strength of just being able to hold as it's printing, and then its easeability of just being able to pop parts off. I mean, that was just super easy, and everything is still there. A little bit of light sanding on the bottom of this, and this will be nice and flat and not worry about it. So it does print well, and I can't really say anything else about it. So again, if you want to check it out, there'll be some links down below to pick it up at a store near you, probably like Amazon. All right, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed me kind of getting back into resin for a little bit. I'll be doing this for the next few weeks here before I go on vacation. This video will be out after I'm on vacation, but printing all of this so that we can do some D&D while I am back home on vacation with my family. So, all right, everybody take care. If you want to support the channel, there's some links down below. Affiliate links, ways to donate, all that jazz. Use them if you wish. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Hope you subscribe and like this video. And I will see you all next time. So happy printing. I'll see you later.